Hey everybody, welcome to the stream. I'm about to record my weekly shows, and so welcome to the chat room. If you want to join the discussion on YouTube and you are watching me currently on Facebook, check out youtube.com/FatherRoderick and hit that subscribe button and hit the bell button in case you want to get notified whenever I go live. And I do go live almost on a weekly basis, sometimes even more. So, but if you want to stay on Facebook for now, that's fine too. What I'll do is, as usual, I'll record my shows and then I'll get back to the chat room. I won't be able to interact that much with the chat room while I'm recording the show because I gotta, keep everything that is important to the recording in the forefront of my mind. But there's always time afterwards. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show. I hope. I'll do my best. Got my show notes ready, and here we go. I've got a lot of fun things to talk about, I hope. Okay, let's turn that down, turn that one up. Jingles. We'll select the right set of jingles here on my Rodecaster. Yeah, I think that's it. Perfect, here we go. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of my weekly show. I'm Father Roderick, and it's a wonderful day. Well, at least for the time being. Sun is shining outside. I'm feeling a ton better than yesterday and the day before yesterday. And I've got a lot of fun topics to talk about during the show. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. This episode is brought to you free of advertisement and the nagging stuff you hear on so many other podcasts, thanks to my patrons, my monthly supporters that help me to do this work. And I always have new patrons to welcome and older patrons to thank for their ongoing support. So I want to start off with just mentioning a couple of them. We've got Terry, who joined in September. Joe also joining in September. And then in October, we had a huge influx of new patrons. Vivienne, Cedric, Detlef, George, Lawrence, and Nadia, Katie, Christine, Sandra, Niels, and Josephina. They all joined in October, which was really, really awesome to have such a great addition to the community. And then in November, we had a few people joining the patrons. We had Mineke, Arika, who's also very active on Discord, and Linda. And then December was a slightly bigger group that joined. We had Bill, Ryan, Chris, Terry, Julie, John. And then in January, so these are the absolute newbies. January has been a really great month for the community so far. I think in these past, 3 weeks now, we've had the biggest influx of new Patreon members. So we have Derek, Mary, Larry, Jason, Bjorn, Sean, Janet, and Koliko. So happy to see you all as part of the community. Many of you have already found the Discord server where we have a ton of discussions, and I get a lot of inspiration also and feedback for what I do. And so if you want to join that wonderful community, take a look at patreon.com/FatherRoderick.
Do you know what's going on? This is what's happening in your world.
Face it, Catholics rule. We got Boston, South America, the good part of Ireland, and we're making serious inroads in Mozambique, baby.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
So, I have some good news. I'm finally feeling a little bit better. If you follow me on social media, you may have seen my update where I announced that I was getting another COVID test. On Monday, I was starting to feel really sick. I had a bit of a fever. I was extremely tired and exhausted. I spent most of that day in bed. I also had, I was feeling nauseous or had stomach cramps and just stuff that I never have. I'm never nauseous. I didn't want to eat. And I started to cough and to sneeze. And then I have this small reserve of garlic in my kitchen that I use for cooking. And when I was getting COVID, one of the things that I noticed was that I lost my sense of smell. So I did the test. I went to the kitchen and I took some of those garlic cloves and tried to smell them. I smelled almost nothing. And then my coffee actually had a weird taste, almost a chemical taste. Now, this may be because it wasn't very good coffee. I don't know. But I was alarmed enough to call for another COVID test, even though I knew that I probably still have enough antibodies. I've had COVID in September, and as far as we know now, you have antibodies for at least 8 months. However, there are reports of people getting reinfected. So since we still don't know that much about the virus and about how ex-patients will fare, I figured, if only for my own reassurance and for the people around me that knew I was sick and have been close in my proximity, I needed to get that test. So got the test, and almost like 10 or 12 hours later, I already had the results. So they've really upscaled the test capacity in my country. And also the number of tests are going down because the inoculations have started, the vaccination has started. And we are currently in a pretty strong lockdown, which is going to be even stricter. Tomorrow, we're going to get an evening clock, which is the first time since the Second World War that we have that. And so after 9 o'clock in the evening, you're not supposed to be outside unless you have a special permit. And then that goes all the way to the morning, like 5:30 or something like that. And they do this not because there is currently not a result of the first part of the lockdown, because that is definitely helping, not as much as we thought it would, and definitely not as much as in spring from last year, because people are less focused, I guess. But it is declining. But we are all kind of calculating what will happen when the variant from the UK will become dominant, and according to the predictions. And this is all statistics, so they can do a pretty, good calculation of what the results will be. This is going to be the dominant strain in March and April, which is it's more infectious. It will raise the R number, so the number of people that get infected by one patient, that will go up by a certain percentage. So they wanted to have a starting position with, the best possible current situation. That's why they've now proposed this evening clock so that we can maybe lower the infection rate even more, so that if this new virus becomes dominant, we can still, stay under that number 1, which is, I think, as long as you're under the R. I'm not even sure if that's called an R number in different languages, but anyway, here they call it the R number. If that stays under number 1, the number of infections will go down. As soon as you're over that, it will rise up. And we've seen in the UK and in Ireland recently how much that incremental rate of the virus, how treacherous that is. Like within 3 weeks, you can have this massive uptick in infections. And if you don't do anything, it will only get worse. So anyway, because of that situation, I got the test results back very quickly. And fortunately, thankfully, it was not COVID. However, that really didn't help. I was still feeling miserable. I was working against a deadline for the second part of my China documentary, and that was actually harder to make than I thought, as I explained in last week's podcast. But I was so sick that I couldn't really sit at my computer. I constantly had to run to the bathroom, and I kind of concluded that if it's not COVID, it's not the regular flu, it must be a stomach bug. And that can be a whole, wide variety of things. Could be a bacteria, it could be like a food infection, whatever. It doesn't matter what caused it, but the results were all the same. It was not pretty, let's put it that way. And it made it really uncomfortable to sit at my computer. I'm not going to go into details. I just want to keep things clean here. But oh my goodness. And so I was unable to get that TV show done. And so on Wednesday, it was 6 o'clock in the evening, and I only had done 3 minutes, I think, 3 or 4 minutes. So I knew that even though I had been working on voiceovers, and so I knew how I wanted to tell the story, but I still had to physically compile it together in the editor, which resulted in me working until 5:30 in the morning. And really, as much as I like working on these documentaries, this is not worth it. And I just feel trapped in this, in my own commitment. Like, I wanted to do this 3-part China documentary because I thought it would save me work by working with already filmed material. But instead, it is actually more work than my regular shows. And I can't keep this up. I don't see myself doing this for a few more months. So either I get better and I find some people to help me with editing, but that is not easy. You can find editors for small stuff. You know, if I would need a YouTube editor, someone to just, take me talking to the camera for about half an hour and take out all the ums and ahs and, make that look nice. That is something you can find, and it's not that expensive. But a real professional TV editor that is able to hit the level of quality that is required for this TV show, that is hard to find, and it is expensive. But something needs to happen. Plus, of course, I'm eager to share these documentaries with, first of all, my my $10, €10 tier Patreon community members, because in their tier, they get early access to the documentaries. But then, of course, we need to have documentaries so they can get early access to them. And this year, I really feel that that time has come to invest in that, because that's my future. TV is not my future. I will probably still make TV programs for hopefully for years to come, but I don't see myself doing that as my core business. I really I'm migrating towards this international production work, and that's what I love to do. I now have the freedom from my bishop to fully focus on my media work, including the ability to travel more and to do more ambitious projects. I don't want to be stuck in this this constant fight with deadlines and putting my own health as a bargaining chip for what I get from working for the TV. So all that is going through my mind quite a bit these days, and I'm really thinking of solutions, because I still have a commitment for this first half of the year to deliver 15 episodes. So either I have to kind of rethink how I do them and make it even more easy and faster to make this stuff, or I just need to step back, and I don't know. I'm still thinking about solutions, but what I do know is that this is not something I can't keep up. As they say in many 90s blockbusters with old cops that are teaming up with Bruce Willis right before their retirement, I'm getting too old for this bleep. That's how I felt. Well, since we're talking about getting too old for this stuff, that is apparently not the case for many politicians in the United States. Of course, there's a new president. We've seen the inauguration. Thankfully, there were no riots. Everything went rather peacefully. But I'm always stunned to see the age of the politicians in the United States. This is something that is very uncommon here in Europe. Most of our politicians are in their 40s. Sometimes when I see our own prime minister is younger than I am, and many ministers and other people working in the Senate and in the chambers are, for me, they're kids, But you rarely see people past the age of 65 active in politics, whereas in the United States, it seems like you have to kind of get past 70 to get any position. It's incredible. I mean, that's impressive, and I think it's is laudable to see that people at a high age, at an advanced age, are still so active in American society, not just in politics, but everywhere. You see that also when I was super surprised when I went to visit Disney World, and in the parking lot, you had like 80-year-olds working there. I was like, what? Wow. Amazing. Well, it's probably also because if you haven't saved up for your retirement, you'll have to work. There's not the same social, let's say, safety that we have in many countries in Europe. So it may just be a necessity that people keep working. But I'm still impressed to see how much people at an advanced age are valued because of their contribution to society. Hey, of course, what I just said is not true for priests and bishops. Most of us will keep working until we die. I know few priests that when they have reached the age of retirement say, well, toodaloo, I'm no longer doing anything for the church. I'm just going to go and live on a remote island and sipping my pina colada. Most of us are, we're not in it for the career. We're in it because we love to do this, and this is our vocation. So, I'm not anywhere near my retirement yet. I saw, by the way, and this is probably also true for you, that Bernie Sanders, this Democrat politician from the U.S., has taken over my timeline. So he was attending the inauguration of President Biden, and he's always been a little bit of a typical guy, just totally himself, doesn't really care what people think. And so he was wearing these mittens that a teacher had made for him out of old clothes or whatever. And she sent it to him and he's wearing them. But they're very out there. And he had this coat. It was apparently super cold outside. You could also tell by Tom Hanks later on did a presentation and he was just physically shaking because I don't think that people expected it to snow on that day. But anyway, so Bernie Sanders was like, I'm not going to freeze to death here at the Capitol. So he had this coat on, which apparently was also something that was gifted by him. It was actually merchandise. There is a company that makes these coats, and it has his face on the back of the coat. And then he saw it with a fan and said, oh, I'd like to have one of those coats. So they gave him one without his face on the back of it. And that was what he was wearing. And now people have cut out that image of him sitting in that chair, not really caring about what people thought of him with the mittens and everything. And they're pasting it in the most hilarious situations. I've even seen him sitting at the table of the Last Supper, and just in a scene of Back to the Future. It's unbelievable how creative people are. And you know what? I think this is a very human reaction to all the tension that not just Americans, but every one of us went through, last week with all the riots happening, and we were all holding our breath, what is happening? And now it's almost this release of it's allowed to laugh again. We can make fun even of our politicians, and it's such a kind of a remedy against all the despair that are even now still is gripping a lot of people. A lot of, apparently from research that has been done in the U.S., a lot of people are super pessimistic about the state of their country, about the future. But laughter, fun, comedy has always proven to be a good medicine against hopelessness, against depression. And so, well, let's bring that to the world. Let's put on our funny hats and make each other laugh. It's much, much, much better use of your time than making people cry.
How do you not like movies?
They're predictable. The guy gets the girl and that kid sees dead people and Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Not liking movies is like not liking puppies.
They're fine. I just get bored and never make it to the end.
You need a movie education. You need a movication. I'm gonna give it to you.
This morning I woke up to some tragic news. I read on Twitter and on Facebook by a post by Michael Straczynski, by the way, who's the writer and the creator of the television series Babylon 5, that the actress Mira Furlan had died. Quite suddenly, most people didn't know that she was ill. It's not exactly clear what she died of. From kind of the vague descriptions that I saw, it's not COVID, but her health was declining, and so she died at the age of, I think, 65 only. She played in Babylon 5. She played an alien, an ambassador called Delenn, Delenn, I should say. She was a Minbari, or kind of a combination of a Minbari and humans. And the whole series of Babylon 5 is a bit similar, if you've never seen the series, it's a bit similar to Deep Space Nine. There's a space station and all these different alien factions and peoples are trying to work together and to, at one point, even fight a common enemy. The ambassador Delenn had a very important role in kind of bringing everyone together. She's played this role for many years. And then afterwards, and this is maybe for some of you that never seen Babylon, you may have seen the series Lost. She also had a recurring role on the TV show Lost, which is still one of my favorite television series ever. She played Danielle Rousseau, I think, in the first and the second season, and then she came back later on in the television series. Danielle Rousseau was one of the people that were actually also on the island even before the group that stranded there because of the crash of the airplane. So she had been living there and sending transmissions through a radio tower, and it was a very different character from the role that she played in Babylon 5. But people loved the way she portrayed that character as well. And that's about it. She was born in former Yugoslavia, and so she went through this whole, in her personal life, of course, had to go through this entire separation, and I think she ended up in Croatia, or maybe that's where she was from. I think she was from what's now Croatia. But at one point, she moved to the United States. She married, I think, a director who directed her at least in one of the episodes of Babylon 5. And they were a very, very tight couple. They had one child. So I presume that the loss is going to be terrible for her family and friends. And this is not the first actor of Babylon 5 to die recently. Past few years, we've seen a lot of people from the old crew dying for various reasons. And so that's always sad. It's like the people that die, the actors from Star Wars. You feel that they're part of your life because you were alive when they were playing these roles that you admired, and now they're no longer there. It always hits you when you hear something like that. Yeah. Then we had a cheerful announcement by Disney, and this time it did not involve Marvel or Star Wars. One of the other franchises that Disney owns is, of course, The Muppet Show. And The Muppet Show is something that a lot of us grew up with. Maybe the younger ones among us did not, but I certainly did. And I will always remember the opening scene, which was kind of like this predictive video of what Zoom calls would look like. And you got the Muppet Show, a special guest star, whatever who it was. And then, you'd see the stage, and of course the orchestra playing the instruments. It's time to light the lights. The Muppet Show tonight. And then the screen at the end shows you all these Muppet characters in an overview of the stage, and they're all in their own kind of cubicle or frame, and it's just like, wow, that was Zoom before there was Zoom. So funny. But anyway, the news, the announcement that Disney brought us was that they're going to bring all the seasons of the original Muppet Show, which have not been available anywhere, at least not that I know, they're going to bring them to Disney Plus starting February 19th. And it will also include the seasons 4 and 5, which I think for copyright reasons, have never been available before. So this is massive news for Muppets fans like I am, and it's also exciting to see that Disney Plus has the leverage now to make stuff like this happen. I bet you that they just went to all of these guests, because every show, of course, would have these celebrities. Even Mark Hamill was one of the guests in a Star Wars themed episode, which I cannot wait to see back, because I remember seeing that as a kid and just freaking out. It was so cool to see, and also a bit weird. See, because Mark Hamill was playing both himself and the character of Luke Skywalker in the same episode, and they even meet. And as a child, you're like, wait, what? How can an actor and the character that he portrays they're together in the same scene? How, what? It was just mind-blowing. It was such a cool episode. I remember there was even pigs in space in that Star Wars episode, which was also Star Wars themed. I think Miss Piggy was Leia or something like that. It was amazing. Anyway, so because they had these special guests, and they would also perform often, like one of their songs or whatever, during the show, apparently this caused lots of copyright problems later on. I don't know, maybe it had to do with the contracts that they signed, and this was way before any of us could have dreamed of on-demand video or this being available for streaming platforms. And so what I think happened was that a lot of these contracts were just signed for, just gave the rights to an airing on TV, but did not include streaming rights. And so that probably has had to be renegotiated by Disney in order to get everything ready for streaming. It was one of the things that surprised me, that they would put up these very mediocre Muppets spin-offs like Muppets Now, which I reviewed a few episodes ago and which I absolutely was horrified with. It was so bad. And I was like, well, why don't they have the original series? Well, probably just because of the legalities that they've been able to solve. So I am super excited. Hopefully they'll be able to present it in a condition that is still watchable, because these were, I think, filmed on videotape. So that's usually not the best quality, and it's hard to preserve. So hopefully it'll look good. I don't know if they can add. I mean, sometimes I get my hopes up high, like, oh, they're going to do this massive restoration, and now Disney has such deep pockets, they can totally upgrade the image like they do with so many remasters nowadays. But then again, they when they launched, they had the black hole, and I was stunned to see that nothing had been done in terms of restoration, whereas I still consider the black hole to be one of the masterpieces of at least when it comes to science fiction movies in Disney's stable. So I don't know if they maybe they will just choose to put this up the way it is, the way they've archived it, and maybe if it's successful, they can do a restoration or something. Let's first wait and see what they will bring us. Speaking of the Muppet Show, I also saw, and I don't know if this is a recent edition or if I just missed it the first time I looked, but I saw that on Disney Plus I can also see The Muppets. And this was a series that was developed for ABC, which is also Disney owned. And I think from the descriptions of what I've heard of it, it was going to be like this behind-the-scenes mockumentary, kind of like The Office or Parks and Recreation, but then with Muppets. And for some reason, I was so kind of disappointed by Muppets Now that I thought, well, so that was what they were talking about back then? Oh, I'm not going to waste my time on watching that. Well, turns out I was wrong. There's a different series. It's just one season right now. I saw the first episode and then a part of another episode just to sample if they can keep up the quality. And it was amazing. It was so good. And it was funny. And it's well done. It's got all your favorite characters. And it's the total opposite of Muppets Now. This is good taste. These jokes are well developed. They're funny. They fit the characters. It's well edited. Everything has a great pace. It just kept me glued to the screen. That's how good it was. And it features this kind of the relationship, the kind of hate-love relationship between Kermit and Miss Piggy. And then she's even worse than she used to be, or at least worse than I remembered her to be. Like in the first episode, they have this special guest, and Miss Piggy is just vicious. It's unbelievable, but so funny. And it's beautifully produced. This is not just two-dimensional like they used to do with the old Muppet Show, where it's basically it's puppet theater. But in this series, the camera moves around. You've got like a foreground and a background. They do like focus shift, where you sometimes see something very sharp in the background, and then the focus moves back to the animals in the foreground. So all that, and they still make it feel as if it was filmed on the spot, which I don't think is possible because it's well scripted. So I just can't imagine how much time they must have put in rehearsals just to get this right. But the result is stunning. And if this is the future of the Muppets, then please bring it on. I want to see more. This was amazing. Final series that I'm able to watch now, thanks to Amazon Prime, is Star Trek Lower Decks, which it has been, I think, also part of CBS All Access in the United States. But none of the other streaming platforms carried it in Europe up until this moment. So I was very excited to hear that even though this premiered like half a year ago in the US, we would finally be able to see it on Amazon Prime. And I did not have high hopes. When I saw the trailer, I was just not even smiling. It just looked like a bit of a Rick and Morty, and it just didn't work for me. So I wasn't really expecting much, and to my surprise, it was actually pretty good. And it was much more like classic Star Trek. It's goofy, it's funny, but the overall stories are much more similar to, regular The Next Generation type episodes. Pretty watchable, good story. And also I was amazed to see that they were able to introduce us to the main crew of characters, and do that without over-the-top exposition or anything. By the end of the first episode, you really already know like 5 or 6 crew members, and you kind of like them, and I like their interaction. So I was pleasantly surprised. I hope that the other episodes of the series are going to be just as good.
Catholics rock!
It is time for a quick visit to the Peculiar Bunch. And this is the place where I talk about Catholic stuff.
Catholics can be a peculiar bunch. No meat on Friday.
Oh, meat? What do they eat? Light bulbs?
Today I don't have a particular question that I answer, and in case you have any questions, let me know, but I just want to make like a general statement.
Man, you guys got more crazy rules than Blockbuster Video.
I just want to get something off my chest, and this is something has been kind of like irritating me for a while now, and that is this tendency that some Catholics have in all areas of Catholicism. You see it with bishops, you see it with parishioners, with fellow priests, with Catholic, media personalities, and it's absolutely not like a general thing that I see, but I see it often enough to get a little bit irked by it, and that is this tendency of some to measure someone else's Catholicity. Catholicity, that's the word, right? So to pass judgment on fellow Catholics and taking a stance as to whether that person should be considered as a good Catholic or not, or even be considered to be a Catholic or not. This is, of course, happening a lot in maybe as a result of the current political climate and also religious climate in the United States, which is very polarized. And it's also kind of seeping down, especially through social media. I see it being embraced also by people over here in Europe. And it's this tendency to take someone like it could be a politician or someone from the entertainment industry, and then writing a blog post about it, or filming a YouTube video, or whatever, or writing an article in a newspaper about why these people are not Catholic, even though maybe they are Catholic because they have been baptized and did their first communion, but this and this and this and this is wrong with that person. And if you are a true Catholic, then you would absolutely not take that stance, and you would not promote this, and you would be against that, and you would be like me, a true Catholic, someone who stands for what he believes in instead of being that other person. I really dislike it when people do that. And I can understand why people do that, because especially in times where things are shifting and where, the group that you belong to feels threatened. Because this is a universal process. I don't think this is just Catholics doing this. You see this in all sorts of social situations. But when the social group that you belong to, that also defines your identity and gives you something to hold on to, like oftentimes the groups that we are a part of co-define our identity, or at least we feel that they do. Like if I'm a fan of this or that soccer club or football club, I just call it football because it involves feet and a ball, right? Football. But anyway, you see that same behavior, like the being part of the fan base of this or that sports club. You wear the jerseys and the hats and the logos. You cheer them on during the matches, even though you're just watching your TV, and the universe couldn't care less if you're yelling at your TV or not. But anyway, you see what I mean? We want to. It's part of the way we function, that we want to belong to certain groups, and I think that religious groups are not an exception. A very important aspect of being a Catholic is being part of the Catholic community. It's not just a set of ideas or a creed that you recite and subscribe to. No, it's also just having people that you feel are part of your group. Well, in our current society, a lot of the social structures are changing, like they've always done throughout history, let's be honest. But anyway, that also means that certain social givens, like there is a parish community that I can belong to, some of those are disappearing or are merging into bigger structures, or are also cultural developments are starting to affect the members of those communities, and they may take different stances on certain things. Like the other day in the previous episode, I was explaining to you how Pope Francis had changed canon law to allow women to also be admitted to the functions of lector and acolyte. And that's it's pretty big change in the organization of the group. And I'm pretty sure that alone has caused among certain members of our Catholic community a lot of uproar and anxiety. Oh, but the next step is going to be they want to claim the diaconate for women and the priesthood for women, and then we're going to have a female pope. It's time for the Lord to return and put some order in this chaotic world where everything goes to, goes down the drain. A lot of those reactions, I think, come from fear. Fear of losing part of your identity. The fear of the group that you belong to no longer being an environment where you feel at ease because it's challenging your worldview. And if there's something that can truly make us anxious, it is that we may have to adjust our worldview, that we may have to rethink things that we have believed for decades, that we have to maybe take a different choice than our parents did on certain issues. It brings us a lot of anxiety because it shows us a mirror and a question. Look into the mirror. Who do you see? Who are you? Who are you? And how do you feel about this group that you belong to and what that group stands for? And do you also stand for it or not? And if we see other people in that group maybe behaving differently from what I think is the norm and what I want to uphold as my norm, if I see someone who claims to be part of my group taking a different direction or behaving differently or defending points of view that, according to my framework, are not part of our system of norms and values, then that fear, I think, is awakened. We're triggered by that fear. And so it's a natural, and also there, it's not just in religions. This happens in other social groups as well. We start to cast out those that are different. We start to move away, or we push people out that we think are not adhering to the norms. I was watching a very honest and very impressive video by someone I follow on YouTube, and I follow him for his movie reviews. And just in January, the beginning of the year, he posted a video, and he starts off that video by saying, "Hey, I'm gonna tell you something that I actually never talked about here on my YouTube channel, but I feel you have to know because I've made a choice, and what I'm gonna tell you right now is gonna be probably resulting in me getting kicked out of the group to which I belong and being completely rejected by my family, including my parents." And then he goes on explaining that he was raised in the cult of the Jehovah's Witnesses. And he himself calls it a cult, even though, that is already something that could get him expelled. And he talks about how much that religious group or that cult has tried to rob him from his individuality, from what he loves to do. It's talking about movies, and how more and more he felt like the only way for me to stay in this group is if I become a drone, if I just follow orders and conform to what everyone else is doing. But I don't want that, because I don't think like that, I don't believe that, and I don't want to be part of this group anymore. And so he then explains what happens in this cult when you don't conform, when you have divergent opinions. You're cast out in the most horrific possible way. And there's really there's not just, we're going to ignore you from now on. No, it's forbidden for your friends and your family that are maybe still be part of the Jehovah's Witnesses to ever talk to you again. So it's and that of course can cause great trauma, and is keeping a lot of people so afraid to diverge because of the social consequences of that divergence. They will stay in the group, and that's exactly what the cult wants. When I was watching that video, I was like, it's easy to say, well, that's just Jehovah's Witnesses, that's a cult. And it is, and there's a huge difference between, I think, a cult like that and, let's say, the Catholic Church. But the behavior is, I think, definitely something that also menaces communities like the Catholic Church, where instead of following the example of our founder, Jesus, to forgive each other, to always go and seek for the lost sheep, to what he himself says, to follow his example when he says, I have not come to earth to judge, but to save. And what do we sometimes do when we feel afraid and when we are not sure if, what I stand for is, do I truly believe that? Am I perfect or not? Well, at least let me point at the other guy who is certainly not perfect. And then maybe I will feel better about myself. There's a lot of this. I'm not a psychologist, but I think it's a process where when you are not really rooted in your faith, when you don't have a living relationship with Jesus, when there's no prayer in your life, or at least not enough, when maybe you're very unhappy with yourself and you feel like you may not always conform to the norms and the ideals of the religion that you're part of, then sometimes what we do is we kind of project an outside version of ourselves, like the Instagram happy face, But then in terms of religion, like I want to project to the outside world that I, at least, even though I know I'm fallible and I make mistakes and I sin and I have to go to confession, but I don't want the outside world to know that, because maybe they'll start to doubt as well. And even worse, maybe I will start to doubt. So I'm just going to project that I'm this good Catholic, and I'm just going to point to the other people that I don't like, that I feel are setting the wrong example. And I'm just going to say they're not Catholic, And that is something. To make it more specific, I've seen posts attacking politicians for not being Catholic because your party is doing this and that and is defending this and that. So you cannot receive communion. You are no longer part of my family. I don't tolerate you. I don't want anything to hear about you. And so it goes much further than let's have a debate. Let's talk about this. What do faith and politics have in common? Where do they maybe, have to start a dialogue? Because faith has oftentimes a different view of mankind, of our of ethics, than politicians and certain political parties do. But instead of doing what is much harder and much more challenging, let's talk. And let me talk also about myself. Where do I stand in this? And can I truly explain why I believe what my church stands for? Or is that too hard? What you see in the QAnon movement, which is, I think, kind of a substitute religion. As soon as these people are criticized, well, how can you believe that? Oh, you just do your homework. I'm not just going to name you all the people that agree with me. But that's a cop-out. You should always be able to bear witness of the truth, to deepen your faith so you can explain it, and also enter a debate. But, most of us don't want that because we don't feel that we can. It makes us uncertain. So it's much easier to just condemn and to just point and judge and say, well, that politician, that president, that guy, that parishioner is not Catholic because, and then we just put them on the stand there and shame them in public. I think we need to stop doing that. It is a counter witness to what I believe Jesus has told us to do. Go and make disciples. He didn't say, go and judge anyone who is not Catholic and put their photo up on Facebook and write an article. Why not? And why you are that perfect follower. Most of the apostles that followed Jesus at one point or another in their life failed to do so and had to be forgiven and had to be given another chance, like Peter, And I wish that we would have that attitude towards fellow Catholics as well. the church is first and foremost a family. And if you are a mother or a father, and one of your kids does something you don't agree with, and that doesn't align with your family values, are you going to kick your kid out of the door and say you never want to talk to that child anymore? Would your first reaction be, hey, I'm just going to confront you with your behavior and I'm going to tell you why I am right and you are wrong? I think that would make you a lousy parent. What you should do, and parents know this, is, well, let me first try to understand my kid. Why is he or she saying that? Why the behavior? Maybe it's something that we can resolve. Maybe I can help. Maybe we can talk. That's what adults do. Kids point fingers and say, you are a lousy Star Wars fan and I'm a Star Trek fan, so you're wrong and I'm right. And you can eat poop. That's what kids do. Sometimes that's also what Catholics do. And I think we need to stop that because it's not helping the church. It's certainly not helping the other person that you criticize. But in the end, it's also not helping you because it betrays your inner disposition, your attitude of judgment, instead of mercy and the ability, the willingness to listen, and even the willingness to enter into a debate. We have to set the example instead of, giving the wrong example, and especially doing it in public like I see so many Catholics do. Sometimes I wonder if, definitely some of these groups, I wonder if their intentions are pure. If they really if they're really criticizing the people around them because they want the best for these people. They want to help them to see the light and the truth. Sometimes a lot of this negativity is also done to get more attention for themselves, for the channel that they want to promote, the money they want to make. But I don't think that will last. I think we're kind of done with all this, this behavior, this uber negative behavior of judging each other, demonizing one another. The last few years have shown us what damage that can do to our society and to ourselves also. I think it's time for another attitude. All right, I'll get off my soapbox now.
When did you become an expert in thermonuclear astrophysics?
Last night. The packet. The extraction theory papers. Am I the only one who did the reading?
I started a book club over on our Discord server that any patron can have access to. And we talk about books, and I ask for suggestions. And I think last week when I was doing my show, I was asking for suggestions for good science fiction books because I read a book that I did not really enjoy. I think it was called Winter World. And Jessica gave me a suggestion to read the Murder Bot Diaries by Martha Wells. These are novellas. They're not very long books, which is good for my Goodreads, goal for this year, reading one book per week and 5 books per month. The Murderbot Diaries is a science fiction series by Martha Wells about an artificial construct designed as a security unit, so basically a robot, but also has some organic parts, working as a security unit, so tries to defend terrestrial missions on other planets, etc., but also sometimes have the ability to kill in order to protect. Now, this artificial construct, this robot, gets self-awareness and is able to hack its governor module, so basically the restraining bolt, if you are a Star Wars fan, and can now hack systems and basically could become a mass murderer, but instead prefers to just watch media, to watch, the equivalent of Netflix all day. Why? Because that's more enjoyable to this murder bot. And so it's so funny that the story is told from the perspective of this murder bot. It was like, yeah, I could, go and kill everybody, but I'd rather watch soap operas. It's interesting, it's funny, and he's hacked into the Netflix over there, and so. But then he needs to accompany a group of explorers that get, I think, betrayed, or there's something going on. There's a bigger plot. I haven't finished the book yet, and then bit by bit he starts to bond with the people, the real humans, which of course kind of he's like a second-degree citizen because of his ability to kill. But bit by bit, he starts to have to, and he's very introverted also. The robot doesn't like to interact with people at all. He doesn't like to look them in the eye, but at one point he has to, because he gets basically teamed up with them. And it is so funny. It's got a really dry humor. It's pretty fast-paced. So you're after like chapter 1, you're immediately in the action, and it's like they at one point. This is the beginning of the story, so it's not a big spoiler. They descend into a crater, and then all of a sudden, out of this crater comes this huge monster. So it's like the pit of Sarlacc or something like that. And then the robot has to save one of the crew members, and then he's describing her injuries, but he's doing it like completely matter-of-factly. So, he describes the body parts that have been ripped off, and then like 5 seconds later, he's talking about a television show that he's watched. It's like, oh my gosh, yeah. You still have a lot to learn. So it's got a little bit of that as well. Like what we all loved about Data in the Next Generation is this robot that has to kind of like get to interact with humans and, well, has to learn from that, but also the other way around. So thank you, Jessica, for that recommendation. And it's a series. So there are a few other books. I was very glad to discover them on Storytel, which is the audiobook service that I subscribe to. So I still have a number of these novels ready for me to listen to. So I'm very, very happy with this discovery. It's called The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells.
The scientifically wonderful world of science.
What sort of science?
Welcome back, science friends.
I always thought that dogs only saw the world in black and white. This is one of these things that you've been told as a child or whatever. And so I always figured, it's... I don't want to... If reincarnation was a thing, which it isn't, I certainly don't want to come back as a dog because I like my colors. Really, if there's anything I like, it is colorful stuff. I as a cameraman, I always look for colors, and I can't stand filming in overcast weather because everything kind of looks gray and drab. If you ever see my photos on my Instagram account, you will see that most of them are compilations of photos where I always try to make a composition that in total gives you a color palette. I'm obsessed with colors. I think it's even more important than what I see is like, what color does it have? And so I was like always pitying the dogs for not seeing colors. Well, it turns out from a scientific point of view, I was completely wrong. Dogs actually do see colors, just not as many as we see. I discovered this website, or this article on a website, which I will link to in the show notes, which has a very, very cool way of explaining what different animals see by giving you photos where you see a living room. It's got a wooden floor, it's got a blue couch, and then a red couch straight from IKEA. It's got like a brown dressoir, or what is it, coffee table with a blue napkin or something like that on top of it. On the left is this pink dining table with black chairs. You see some bookshelves, lamps, and a part of an open kitchen. The cool thing is that photo has a handle, like an orange icon that you can move to the left, and then all of a sudden you will get the version of the same living room, but then in the colors and also with the field of view of different animals. And it's pretty amazing. And it turns out it's different for all types of animals. So first of all, the dog, actually dogs do see colors, but they have only 2 cones instead of 3. We are able to see the primary colors of blue, green, and red. And we combine these colors to see all these different shades. Your television screen or monitor has the same functions in the same way. It has basically every dot that you see has consists of 3 colors. Just go and grab not a microscope, because many of us don't have those. If you have these older TVs, you could actually see the lines of colors on the screen. So dogs only have 2 cones, and they see only blue and yellow. So, for instance, the red couch, the red IKEA couch in the dog's version looks kind of brownish or beige. But the blue couch looks okay. The green, whatever it is next to the couch, looks green, because those colors are made out of blue and yellow. The pink dining table also just looks kind of beige or yellowish. What a dog also doesn't have, like us, is the same visual acuity. Which means the ability to make out shapes and details is much lower with dogs. They only have 20 to 40% of what we see. So the photo is much more blurry, which also means that dogs can't really see from afar. And you notice that when you approach a dog, even if it's your own dog, it takes a while for them to recognize you. What they use, of course, in conjunction with their eyesight is their nose. And so probably even before they recognize you with their eyes, they've already smelled you because they can smell so much more than we can smell. That, of course, is kind of hard to visualize on a website. And dogs also have a much wider field of vision, which I did not know. They have a 240-degree field of vision. So they see much more of the room than we do. We have a 180-degree field of view. They see 240. That is 60 degrees more than we have. That is the width of your webcam. It's incredible. A cat is slightly different. So a cat has 200 degrees field of view, so it's not as wide as the field of view of a dog. Cats do see much more during the night because they have the cone, the rods actually. So we have cones and rods, right? But the cats have more rods than cones, I think, which is a different type of a photoreceptor cell, sensitive to low light. So cats can see perfectly in the dark, whereas we don't see anything and bump our heads. The color vision of cats is also different from dogs. It has 2 color cones, blues and yellows, but also a little bit of green. So if I move this handle on the photo around, you'll see that the room looks very different, much more warped. The red couch looks also a bit beige, slightly more pinkish, I think. And everything kind of looks more yellowish in a certain way. Then you've got goldfish. Wow, that was a massive discovery. I had no idea. Goldfish actually see more than we see. They also see ultraviolet light, which helps them to see underwater. And there's also something else going on with its eyes. The eyes on the inside have the same density as water, so they don't have trouble seeing underwater because the warping effects of light in water are compensated by the composition of their eyes. Whereas if you open your eyes in water, you don't see much. Also, because of the position of and form and the shape of the eyes of the goldfish, a fish has almost a 360-degree canvas, so it can see almost anywhere. Amazing. So anyways, it got also the view of snakes, tarantulas, and parrots. Now, one thing that was cool for me to discover was that tarantulas, even though they have 8 eyes, they don't see anything. They have such a blurry sight. So instead, they use the hairs on their legs to sense. So as long as I don't move, it can't see me.
We are on the cutting edge of technology.
Wow.
Well, what does that mean?
Just plug it in. It's going to say, hey, I see you plugged in a new device. And it's going to load in the appropriate drivers. You'll notice that this scanner build... Whoa.
Well, all your technology stuff just ends in disaster.
But there is one more thing.
I wanted to briefly talk about the whole WhatsApp thing. Now, this is a messaging app that is owned by Facebook, very popular in the Netherlands. Everybody uses WhatsApp. But recently, WhatsApp has caused quite an uproar, or actually Facebook did, because they announced that they wanted to combine the data that they get, the user data, from WhatsApp. Not that we're reading your messages, but they use, of course, all sorts of other data. They gather also your location and how you use the screen, probably how long you look at ads and stuff. And it wants to combine all that data, which it has gathered for years, let's be honest, with all the data that they already have from you through Facebook and probably also Messenger and other services that Facebook owns, Instagram also. Now, of course, in Europe, there are very strict data laws, much stricter than in North America. So they have not been allowed to do that, but they've announced that they want to do that in the United States. And the backlash has been tremendous. Lots and lots of people have been switching to Signal, which is also a messaging service. It's free as far as I know, encrypted, and has much stricter rules to which it abides or says to abide. And because it's highly encrypted, they can't even gather that much information compared to what Facebook is able to gather. Now, it's funny that people are switching to Signal. I use it myself as well. I kind of like the overall interface of WhatsApp a little bit more than Signal. I think definitely WhatsApp on the computer is a lot more comfortable to use than Signal. But it's interesting that lots of people are now switching to Signal, thinking that now they are safe from Facebook, but that's not true. Facebook is everywhere. Even if you're not running the app on your phone, it still gathers a ton of data. If you have the app on your phone, it probably also does profiling. We don't know for sure what all these big companies do. So even if you're not logged in, it can still recognize your behavior and can continue to fill their profiles of you with information, even though you think that they are not measuring anything. And let's be honest, Google is doing the same. A lot of other companies and app makers are doing the same. That is why this crazy theory that some people believe in, that the vaccinations are actually meant to inject like microchips, like tracking chips in you, so they, for whatever evil master plan, the Bill Gates as the big villain of the world in those theories. Why would they? You carry your phone. That's all they need. And if you have other smart devices, they know so much. Of course, we need to, I think, be careful with and also we need to have a debate with these companies about how they use their data. What is ethical? What do we, as a society, allow? How far should this go? And there have been many, many times in the past that Facebook has not been a good steward of all that data. And probably other companies have made similar mistakes. And it's not just data leaks and that sort of stuff or getting hacked. It's just what do you do with all this knowledge that you have about anyone, basically? And how dangerous can it be when algorithms start to use that data to basically control the spread of information? We've seen in recent times how disastrous of an effect that can have on every dimension of our society. So I think there needs to be, and there already is, and to a certain extent, a discussion among us as users and with our representatives in our governments, with these companies, to make sure that we are all finding ways to really steward this, be good stewards of this data, because it's so defining for people's future, and these companies have so much power. Well, power can corrupt. It doesn't always, but it can, and we need to be vigilant. That is the final element of this show. Thank you so much. I'm not tracking you, by the way. I can see how many people download this podcast episode. I can't even tell if they've ever listened to it. So if you're listening to this, thanks. I wouldn't know. Hey, I'm going to record another episode for my patrons. It's called Father Roderick to the Max, and this week I'm going to talk about what I discovered about hash browns and what else you can do with grated potato. I'm going to talk about my production or creation workflow and which tools I use to prepare my shows and TV programs. I'm going to give you a review of a Marvel comic called The House of M, which I think has inspired WandaVision on Disney+. I'll talk about my initial experiences celebrating Mass at Orientem, and I'll talk a little bit about Dolby Atmos for headphones in conjunction with video games. All that and more on this week's episode of Father Roderick to the Max, available exclusively to my patrons over at patreon.com/Father Roderick. It's available for all tiers, so by all means take a look. You can already become a patron for $2.50 a month. A month! Love to have you as a member of the community. See you later. Have a wonderful day. Stay healthy, and God bless. And that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, I have so much more energy than I had yesterday. Interesting. How is everybody doing in the chat room? Because I have not looked at the chat room for 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 9 seconds. Okay, we've got 9 Shifra. Brandon is there. Inge is there. Ulmanen FPS. And Radagast Studio is there too. Dylan. I need to get new reading glasses. What's my favorite Star Wars movie? Empire Strikes Back. We got HK Nate Mon. Heyo. Appius is a Finnish theology student. Welcome. That is so cool. I did not know that we had people from Finland. One of the coolest and crazy difficult languages in the world. Afia says, your enthusiasm for such things as Star Wars or religion is a huge sport for me. You're like a role model. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. Alex says, I really enjoyed your Sea of Thieves videos. If you can do more cut down gameplay videos with heads up to see if people can play with you and help you learn the games. Yeah, that was fun. Oh, I really loved Sea of Thieves. It is so unfortunate that I've had so many health issues the past couple of months that have prevented me from doing anything basically at night. But yeah, I'm going to do more video game streaming. SL7 says, I'm an editor. Really? What do you do? What do you edit? Tell me more. Matthew says, Joe Biden is in his late 70s. Oh, I thought he was like 75 or something like that. Wow. From all the town hall meetings, he doesn't seem smart. Okay. I'm not sure. Are you talking about our prime minister? Great Scott. Oh, the wind. Yeah, the wind was crazy. The cold wind during the inauguration. The young poet, I forgot to talk about her. She was amazing. I was like, oh, wow, that restores hope in humanity. I mean, the talent of some kids these days. Unbelievable. Oh, gosh, I probably broke the news about the death of Mira for some people in the chat. Yeah, it's so sad. Lorian says, I will go with you beyond the rim, and we will see again all those who went ahead of us, all those who we have missed for so long. Yeah, we hope so. Babylon 5 had amazing writing, yes. The Muppets. Inge wants to see the Fraggles return. I've never seen the Fraggles as a kid. But then again, Inge is like 40 years younger than I am, so... Mark Hamill does a great Yoda impression, really. Blue Toast says, we seem to have landed on some kind of comedy variety show planet. And Sesame Street. Sesame Street was available almost everywhere, but it's not always the American Sesame Street. Like the Dutch Sesame Street had a completely different street. Different animals, different puppets. It was all created here in the Netherlands, and the only things we had in common were these sketches with Bert and Ernie and Kermit the reporter and that sort of stuff. But for instance, Elmo, who was a staple cast member of Sesame Street in the U.S., completely unknown. We didn't have Elmo. We had I think a blue version of Elmo, kind of similar. I forgot what his name was. But anyway, we didn't have Big Bird. We had a Big Bird, but it was a blue bird. And not as skinny as the yellow bird from the Muppets. What about Gary Anderson? Do you like Space 1999? Oh, yes. Oh, that was amazing. I so love that series. St. Peter is not going to hand you a sash full of merit badges in the end. Hear, hear. That's true. Scientology is also a cult, I think. Inge says it's more insecurity than fear. Yeah, maybe. And Samuel asks for prayers. Yeah, we can all use some prayers. And I'm not saying that I'm better than any of you. That's hopefully why people can relate to what I say. I want to always kind of be real, be the Father Roderick you see right now is the Father Roderick that I see in the mirror myself. Maybe a little bit less energetic, because I'm always getting extra adrenaline when I'm doing a podcast. But in terms of, I would never like to say something on a show or on TV that I don't, that is not part of me. I couldn't. Samuel V says, I'm a huge fan. I love listening to your mass. Can you make one based on the Old Testament, since I'm Jewish and the stuff about Jesus does not apply to me? Oh, yeah, that's actually, I should probably also talk a bit more about the Old Testament readings that we use. Like Samuel. I did talk about the story of Samuel, the vocation of Samuel in the last homily. And then I compared that also with the vocation of Harry Potter and Bilbo Baggins and Luke Skywalker. So, but yeah, you're right. We should preach more also about the Old Testament. Margot slept in and almost missed the show. But hey, you got to sleep in. That's awesome. I totally give you permission to miss the show. Yeah, the website with the pets, I'll include that in the show notes, or Inge will do that. Michiel is there too. Afternoon. Margot is a vet tech with a huge interest in behavior, so understanding how animals perceive the world is very important to me. Cool. Then Facebook and Signal. Okay, yeah, Facebook has their own key for all the messages for the encryption, and Signal, it's on my device, so nobody can read other than me and the person that I sent that message to. Evo says, I hope you're feeling better and that Lego builds will resume soon. Yeah, me too. I'm eager to build Lego again. Mike is there too. Hope you didn't miss too much of the show. SL7 says, I edit movies and TV, music videos, tribute, multi-fandoms. Oh, cool. Do you have a YouTube channel or something? Can I look you up somewhere on the internet? Send me a message. I'd love to get in touch with you. The flags were pretty cool during the inauguration. Yeah, I thought it was a brilliant idea of still kind of symbolizing the people that would have wanted to be there. John says, I've got group in 30 minutes. I'm sorry. This will stay online. You'll be able to rewatch it afterwards. Claudia Piotr is saying hello from Poland. Dzień dobry. And Darth Cynical from Tennessee. And Tony is from California. Very cool. All righty. Anywho, I'm going to record my Patreon show. So for my patrons, of course, you know what to do. I'll send a link to the stream in your email so you can join me there. And for all the other YouTube people, thank you so much. If you can give my channel a subscription, if you can like some of my recent regular videos on YouTube, that would help me a bunch. I am so dedicated to building up this channel in the year to come. I think I'm so eager to get better and for the world to return to normal. So this is going to be a good year. Absolutely. Anyway, see you guys later. Have a wonderful day. And maybe there's not going to be Lego tonight because I have to do a conference call with the West Coast of the U.S. That's going to probably take up most of my evening, but maybe Saturday.